Welcome to the in-depth mindset question of overcoming overwhelm. So one of the philosophies that we have inside of the Maximum Growth Academy and inside of class is that we like you to show up even if you feel sick, even if you are struggling and you're feeling overwhelmed, if you are feeling down and out and depressed and you just don't want to even show up for life, then this is the time that you just show up for class. We really encourage you to just show up. It's kind of like going to the gym and you just leaning in and being there sometimes can just help that momentum and shift. But in today's session, I really want to cover the concept of overwhelm, and then what are some best strategies that you can do to work through your overwhelm, as well as giving you some really quality questions to make a difference, so that you can actually just break the journey down with maximum growth and also your personal development journey. So stay with me. So first of all, human behavior is very complex. So there are multiple dynamics and layers, and you've got other people's stuff coming into the dynamic when it comes to your own personal charges, and also what's actually going on in the moment. So you've got your own history that you're dealing with. If there's other people in the room, they've got their own history bringing it into the room. You've got different traits, actions, inactions being displayed or demonstrated in a moment. You have different contexts. You've got different directions of expression. You've got the depth of different charges, the length of the charge that you've had it for. So there's a lot of things that are being triggered and charged in a moment with human behavior. And so if I could teach you in 60 seconds or 60 minutes how long to understand human behavior, I would. But it's a journey and a process. So which is why we do a 2-month cycle of just the Demartini method in this form. So it's really 2 months where you're going to have to get the whole overlay. And so if you have an expectation, I'm going to know everything in the first week, then it's not possible, because it's at least a minimum of 2 months. Most people start to find that there's less overwhelm about the 3-month mark when they've showed up to class each and every week. And so overwhelm is just that experience where you just feel like you go into shutdown mode, instead of fight and flight, it goes into that freeze response where you just go shut down. And it's like, I don't even know what to do. And so one of the things that we want to appreciate is that overwhelm is the symptom. It's not the cause. We have to find out what's the trigger that's actually creating the feeling of overwhelm in the first place. So let me give you some tips on what's actually happening in that overwhelm stage. So first is we have a learning curve with our journey of learning. And that part of it is that unknown uncertainty. I don't really know what's going on. And then it takes some time to acquire the language and the understanding and the framework and the foundation. And when you have that, then we have a bit more of an upward journey, and we're like, okay, I'm getting this. And then you're like, no, I'm not getting it, not getting it, not getting it, until there's more understanding. So we've got to embrace that learning curve. We also have a proactive plan, which is inside your Getting Started guide. That Getting Started guide proactive plan is really helpful, because basically it helps you lay out all of your stuff that you want to work on. We call it like above the line, below the line, or like the dissolve and level up. And so looking at those things in each of the areas of life. So spiritually, what do you want to level up in, and what do you want to dissolve, in emotional stuff you want to work on to shift the dynamic spiritually. And then you go mentally and vocationally. And so you just end up breaking it down, and then you can create a plan. Like, what's the plan, and what's the immediate first thing that you can do? Like, just what's the next first thing to do? Because sometimes we can get so overwhelmed with all our problems. It's just like, I don't even know where to start. Just start with one thing, the first thing. And so we also want to reach out anytime you're feeling overwhelmed, particularly in our Maximum Growth Academy. You just have to reach out to one of the team, Justin, myself, one of the team members, and we'll definitely be able to help you, because we can give you some guidance in terms of what is your next best thing to work on. We also want to have regularity when we're doing this work, because if you can imagine going to the gym, and you go to the gym once a month, the result's going to be very different versus going to the gym 5 times a week. And so that consistency is key to being able to shift the dynamics and things that are going on inside of you, and then also change your paradigm of thinking, which is going to change your paradigm of living. And so it's really creating a consistent flow. So we've got community co-working spaces, which really help with that. The link is inside of here. And so that you'll also have that as a way to come where other people are applying the work. So you're not having to do it on your own if that's not what you want to do. We also have people who do the work on their own. They set their own time and schedule. They have it blocked out, and this is their dedicated time. Like they would show up for a client. You would show up and you wouldn't flake and go, I'm too tired, I'm XYZ. You've got a cold or, not feeling so great. You just show up anyway. So we want to make sure that you hold your feet to the fire. But if you don't, just reach out to us and we will help you with that. And so that's definitely something that we do want to become aware of, and make sure that we have scheduled our personal development into our work week. And so when there's also different stages when we go through and we're doing this like new learning, and it's this like, and I'm going to use very polarizing language, so stay with me. And so the first is that we have this like informed optimism, which is this like rose-colored lenses, and you're like starry-eyed to this idea that, oh my gosh, everything is so amazing and so great. And then you go through a period of time where you start to go informed pessimism, where you're like, oh, this isn't going to work. This takes too long. I've got too much stuff to work on. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. There's too much content going on. I don't even know where to start. And so we end up having this like informed pessimism. And so then we go through this valley of despair. Maybe nothing's going to change. Maybe I'm always going to be the same. I'm going to feel like I'm never going to be able to, move forward and make the traction I really want. And so we go through this like valley of despair. And so then we go through the next, which is informed optimism. So this is hopefully what this class will do, is that you then go, okay, hang on, all of this is part of the journey. I'm going to take my rose-colored lenses off. I'm going to know that there's some hard work ahead of me, and then have this informed optimism, which is like, okay, I'm going to keep on working. I know that other people also have this option of keep on doing the work, and 2 months, 3 months, 4 months onwards, you're going to see some really big changes and shifts. And so then we start to go into that last stage, which is the fifth stage, which is that fulfillment. And you start to really notice the changes and the shifts in your outer world, and also in your inner world. You will notice the shifts and changes as you start to work through things. And then you'll reflect back and think, overwhelm? No, I've just chunked it down into bite-sized pieces. I've taken off my rosy colored lens of thinking it was going to be really easy. I've rolled up my sleeves and I've started to get the work done. I've been around other people, which is why the community co-working space is so great, because then all of a sudden you have this energy of other people doing the work. You're like, oh, wow, that's so inspiring what you're doing. Actually, that's great. And so you kind of share in the journey with others. And so these are some kind of understanding of what overwhelm is. If you do go through overwhelm, we do have the workbook that you can download just underneath here. And there are some really great tips that you want to, or some questions that can help to shift your dynamic that you've got around overwhelm, because I am 100% guaranteed that you have done overwhelm before, and this is not your first time of going into a course, going and doing something new, and then you go into overwhelm and just don't do anything. So what we want to do is we want to break down big on finding the problem underneath the problem. Overwhelm's the symptom. What's the problem underneath the problem? Let's dig deep and find out. So I'm going to go through some ideas maybe that might resonate for you, but they might be something different. So I want you to still remain open. So it could be workload, and it's like you've got too many things that you're going on, and that's what's creating your overwhelm. Maybe there is an overwhelm because you have a drive that you want to learn, and then the result of that is you don't know what to learn, and so you go into overwhelm. Maybe it's not even to do with any of that. Maybe it's actually you've got financial stress, and you're like, I've got to keep on paying, and how am I going to make the payment? And so then you're thinking, I'm financially stressed. Maybe you think that everyone else is doing so well, that comparisonitis. You think everyone else is doing so well, they're doing their lines of the Demartini method, they're doing their homework and their work, and they just seem to do it so much more effortless than me. And so then it might be that comparison, but you essentially want to find what is the trigger that's creating the overwhelm in the first place. And so then the result of that, we're going to go back to a specific moment. You're going to have this in your workbook, but I'm just going to run through what the steps are. So it's go back to a specific moment where you perceived that overwhelm. So if it is, for example, that you're under, say, financial stress, and you're thinking, okay, I'm already stretching, putting myself here. Okay, so then you go back to a period of time in your life where you are under financial stress. Could be any moment. It doesn't have to be when you're paying for a course or a program. It could be any moment. Go to that one. You're going to get clear on where, when, and that moment of perception. So the question 2 then is define what the problem under the problem is, which in this case, it's like the overwhelm, which I just described, is the financial pressure. And it's because you have to make payment. Okay. And so then you go, you're going to get really present in that moment. So this is step 3. You get present in the moment. You say, okay, how did it specifically serve me to stretch myself financially and pay for that, that program, of course, benefit, 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 benefit. And you keep on stacking up more and more benefits until you perceive on that scale equal benefits and drawbacks. And you're like, cool, actually, it's great, because financial pressure or financial pushing, it stretches you, gets you to value the work. It gets you to put the time and energy and tension into it. It gets you thinking, well, how can I turn my learning into earning, which is one of the big components that we do inside of Maximum Growth. And so you start to appreciate the hidden order inside of this dynamic. And so that's step 3. And step 4 then is cracking the fantasy, because the reason why we get triggered, which then creates overwhelm, so the trigger of finances, and then that builds up like a bubbling thing builds up inside. And then you're like, oh my gosh, now I'm overwhelmed, which is that top surface dynamic of charge. You then have to ask, hang on, what's my ideal that's creating this pressure and this challenge in the first place? And so the ideal could be that you had the resources to pay for the course. And so what would be the drawback if at that time you had the resources to pay for the program, and you'd go then drawback until now you're 100% certain that you wouldn't want it the other way. You're actually grateful the way that it is. And so that releases some of the tension and pressure you have around the dynamic around finances, which is creating the overwhelm in the first place. And then you just do that for each of you might have to repeat step 1, 2, 3, and 4 for all the different kind of charges and triggers that you have around that's creating that overwhelm, until you just start to notice your nervous system relaxes, you feel less stressed. And then we want to set a plan, because there's no point like dissolving any overwhelm if we then don't have an actionable plan. Like, what's your next thing that you're going to work on? Like, what's the next thing that's going to give you the greatest and biggest shift that's going to help you move your life forward? And so you've got 7 areas of life. You've got your top 3 values. You've got your past to present. And so you're just going to find one thing that you're going to work on. One thing, that's it. You're going to work on that. And then the next one thing and the next one thing. And that's how we're going to work it. So rather than trying to see everything that you need to work on in the one time, which is impossible when we go into that freeze response, we just want to go and break it down into really bite-sized pieces. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. Just reach out to the team. We'll create a growth plan for you so that you know. We also have growth plans inside of the navigation hub as well that you'll be able to find. And so if you'd like to check those out, they're also really helpful to give you a few bite-sized pieces to work on, and also come and check in with us, because we can only help you to the degree that you share. So one thing to remember, maybe there's a few, but one thing definitely to remember: show up even if you're not feeling great. So thank you for joining us for this in-depth mindset question. I hope that you got lots of value out of it. If you have any thoughts, insights, really like aha moments, please just comment and below, share some of your wisdom with the community. Love to hear your insights. And I look forward to seeing you at the next perfect time.